Welcome to Monetize This, where podcasting best practices come to die. I'm your host, David Beckmeyer. Today I'm talking with John Leschinski, one of the people behind the Canadian Podcast Awards. We're talking about what podcast awards are actually for, whether they really help podcasters, and why some of them look suspiciously like a cash grab. Let's get into it. John Leschinski, thank you so much for making time for our little show.
No problem. Happy to be here.
So I just want to know a little bit about your sort of view of podcasting awards in general. Who do they serve, and what do podcasters think they're getting into when they pursue them?
So what I think podcast awards are basically about recognition. People want to be recognized. They want to know that their work is being valued. They want to see some sort of return on what they're investing into this, because most of them aren't making money on this. A lot of this is like labor of love type stuff. They're just doing it because they enjoy doing it. They may never see a return on it, but when they get recognized or nominated or win an award, that can be a real boost in your sales to keep going. A lot of podcasts just stop after 10 episodes. So it's really hard to keep that momentum going. And sometimes awards can help keep you going. It's also a good way for podcasters to kind of maybe do get into that next branch where you can make money by saying, I'm an award-winning podcaster, to sponsors and stuff. So I think that's kind of the main impetus of podcast awards. Most awards is A, being recognized to feel good about yourself, and B, to find your next paycheck.
Mm-hmm. So, besides being for Canadian podcasters, what makes the Canada Podcast Awards stand out?
So I think ours is a bit different than a lot of the ones that you see out there right now. It's not really focused on bringing in listener driven podcasts where the listeners are voting for the show. It's industry based. So you have to be Canadian and you have to have a podcast or work in podcasting to even sign up. All the nominations are from your peers in the industry. All the voting is from your peers in the industry. So it's an industry-based awards that is also currently free to enter. I think that's mostly what separates us, is it's industry-based award for just Canadians to promote Canadian content, and it's currently low cost right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about that a little bit. That particularly that there are award programs out there that charge significant fees to enter, and I'll say that like you're saying, I get it. It does cost this, but it does cost money to do this. But also some of them just seem to be that's what they're really in the business of, is getting people to join the award. So I'm just a little curious about, or apply for the award. So I'm just a little curious about some of your thoughts on that overall.
Yeah, I think there's a few out there that seem to be mostly if you pay, you win an award, basically. There's some out there that have multiple winners on a stage. There's 3 bronze winners in this category. Okay, that seems a little weird, but you do you. So yeah, there are some out there that seem like they're kind of just, it's a cash grab.
Well, it seems like some of it is kind of becoming the celebrity podcast and the rest of us, if you're not one of those kind of really big podcasts, then.
Yeah. If you don't have a PR agent to push for an Ambies nomination or something. And that is everyone's oh, these are just celebrity podcasts, but yeah, they're the ones that have the money to push this. And celebrity podcasts are a big thing. A lot of people listen to celebrity-led podcasts. That's a good chunk of listenership right now. So it is kind of harder for everyone else to get nominated.
Yeah, and actually speaking to that a little bit, so how is the breakdown of sort of the shows that have won awards with won your awards, and then what are they measuring? You mentioned a little bit about how it works, but I mean, is it mostly about popularity or craft or production quality, or are there different categories like that?
So we have 32 categories that you can be nominated in. mostly following like the iTunes top level categories, so like comedy or health and fitness. And then we have some technical categories that you can also be nominated in, and some other special categories like a francophone podcast because Canada is a bilingual country, and we have an indigenous category as well. So those are the categories that you can enter. The nomination process is kind of like a popularity contest, as is the voting part as well. You have to be known in the industry. You have to know other Canadian podcasters to get them to vote for you, to get them to nominate you, to be considered. So it is a little bit of like a popularity contest, but it's we kind of made it that way so that we could build more community here in Canada, so that you have to know other Canadian podcasters. That sort of thing is really what we want to see come out of this, is building up the industry and the community to like raise all ships. Sorry, I think the cat was playing the piano.
That's cool. That's fine. We're good with pets. We're pet friendly. It's okay. Our audience loves it. I love it. If they don't love it, then it shouldn't be our audience. Yeah, that's an interesting thing about it too. Is like, so do you give sort of guidance to the I don't know what the best language is of the folks that are ultimately going to decide the winner? Do you give guidance to them and say, here's the criteria you should be looking at?
So it's per category based. So they'll listen to 4 or 5 podcasts in that category and then pick which one they think is best. So we don't give like a too much like heavy like guidance on it. It's mostly like who you think deserves the award the best.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk a little bit more about the category thing, because that's always something that sort of frustrates me when I look at a lot of these awards, is that it's easy for a podcaster to sort of say, hey, my category is not there, therefore what I'm doing must not matter. And I think for impact podcasters and hobby podcasters and some of the nonprofit sort of stuff that is a space that I spend time in, and it's basically everybody else that isn't comedy, business, or true crime, I can kind of feel like, that what they're doing just doesn't matter. So, but I get from the organizer's side, like you can't have every single category, or, it kind of dilutes the whole thing. So, how do you walk that tightrope? At what point does sort of adding more categories make it more inclusive? And at what point does it turn it into a sort of a participation award?
Yeah, I think we have had people like ask, oh, can you have like a category for this or a category for independent podcasters only? But like, for us, it's mostly independent podcasters, so it really doesn't make sense to add more categories to that. If anything, we see low participation in several categories where we would probably reduce the amount of categories we have if we could. But year to year, it depends. We can call categories if we don't get at least 5 nominations in that category. We can call the whole category usually. Documentary is one that usually doesn't do well, and personal, like journal podcasting, usually doesn't get a lot of entries. So those are usually the first 2 that go by the wayside.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're supporting most of the Apple categories, that's more than many awards. Many awards seem to just have sort of the top 3, 4, 5, or 6. And if you're not in one of those, that there's like, then you have to sort of wedge yourself in there into one of those other ones.
Yeah, and you can select up to 3 categories, like an Apple podcast, to like have your show under. So a lot of our shows are nominated in multiple categories.
And so you're actually in. You don't later decide, oh, they picked these 3, but I'm going to drop them in this one. You're potentially competing in all 3 at once.
Yep. Yeah. So they nominate themselves in whatever categories they want. Other podcasters can nominate them in those categories as well, and the ones that have the most nominations make it to the next round.
Oh, so you do accept nominations for themselves? A podcast can nominate themselves?
Podcasts can nominate themselves. They sort of have to nominate themselves as well, because we need more information from them to complete the nomination process. So they have to finish like another form after they're nominated. But yeah, we allow them to nominate themselves, and then they can vote on themselves as well. But
and you have to be a Canadian podcaster to vote or nominate somebody, right?
Yep, you have to be a Canadian podcaster. We vet all of those by hand. My partner Jennifer goes through every single application that comes through. Most of the year, there's not a lot of applications, but right before the awards are about to happen, we get hundreds of applications come in. So we have to go through, check them on LinkedIn, check them on like all the social medias to make sure they are actually a Canadian working in podcasting, not just someone who's been a guest on a podcast or is like friends with a podcaster. We really want to make sure like people are actively participating in the industry.
Cool. I like it. I don't know if you've seen this Age of Audio documentary movie.
No.
One of the featured podcasts on that in the movie talks about, there's a big section about them winning a bunch of awards and the effort and the work they did to win a bunch of awards. But then they also sort of said, you know what, that didn't really translate into any money, and that was great to have the awards, but I had to kind of not worry about that anymore and go look at revenue. So I guess is that something that kind of matches what you've seen?
Actually, we've seen kind of the opposite. I mean, it really depends on what you do after you win the award, right? Like you have to be out there like yelling from the hilltop, like I won an award, and this is why you should pay attention to me. We've seen several winners like go on to get brand deals or like be brought out as guests to different conferences and stuff. So it has helped podcasts, and I think it does help the more independent podcasts who really don't have any sense of like what their marketing or PR strategy should be. It gives them something to like start off with, like I've won an award, this is like my package. So we have seen it translate into more success, in air quotes. But I would say like you have to be very proactive. You have to be like really pushing it.
Yeah. So I'll ask, if somebody was launching their $2,000 course promising to help podcasters win an award, what should be in module 1?
Read the instructions. Make sure the email isn't going to spam. That's kind of like the 101. That's our biggest issue, is like people don't read the instructions and what we're asking from them. Or the emails, like they just don't get read, they go to spam or something. Like those are our two biggest issues. So that would be like the 101 for me. Like follow the rules, make sure you understand what the process is, and then make sure you're getting all the communications. Maybe 102 would be how to film an acceptance video, because we do ours as a little bit of a live stream, like a premiere on YouTube. So we have to get videos in from everyone across the country and then edit the video together for the awards. And a lot of the submissions we get for like awards acceptance are just like really bad. They're like the camera's like facing up into their nostrils, like, or it's like they're too close to the camera, or too far is actually better for me. But like we're thinking about actually putting out an instructional video about how to film an acceptance speech, because for the last several years, like we get some that are just so bad. And like I get that video isn't everyone's thing, but audio should be the thing. And we still get a lot of bad audio award acceptances. So like that would be my 102.
That's great. So is there anybody who should definitely not submit their podcast, or a podcast, or any types of podcasts that should not be submitted for awards?
I guess not. Like for our awards, like it's all peer reviewed anyway. So like it's not really up to me. Like plenty of podcasts have won that I don't care for. But maybe like I would give it a little bit of time before you submit for more. Like I probably wouldn't do it. Like we have a debut category. So like if you have a podcast that's debuting and it's doing well, submit it to that category. But I think a lot of podcasters probably need like a little bit of runway before they submit for an award. Like don't have just like 3 episodes and then start submitting. But like in terms of categories or like topics or whatever, like anything is fine. Like,
yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's like I've been doing this like almost 4 years now, which I know is kind of still pretty young, and it's still like you said, like when you're ready. Like when am I going to be ready? I'm not sure when I'm going to be ready, because if I look anytime I turn back to an episode from like 3 episodes ago, you're like, oh, that was horrible when I did that thing.
yeah, that's always the thing, and like you don't like people ask us like, I want to start a podcast. Like, what should I do? Like, and our advice is always just like put out episodes, because you're never going to like know what works or what doesn't work until like you've put out the episode, and then you can look back and be like, oh, that was bad. Like that's how you can measure like what's going right and what's going wrong, and like how you can measure your growth, is being able to like have a little bit of that cringe feeling when you look back at your old content.
Yeah,
But you'll never know that unless you don't start.
exactly. I mean, you can read all the books you want, and I can tell you start getting time in front of the mic, you're not gonna improve,
Yeah,
or not even
exactly.
gonna know where you need to improve.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is there any other sort of what do people get wrong about awards or anything like that you'd like to throw in?
Yeah, well, like one of the misconceptions about awards is that like we're just here to like find your podcast and give you an award. People are like, "Oh, why wasn't I nominated?" Well, like you didn't nominate yourself. Well, I'm supposed to find your podcast out of 4 million or whatever million podcasts there are now, and give you an award. Like, and people like that seem to think like, "Oh, I have a podcast. I'm a big deal. Everyone should know me." So a little bit of humility would go a long way for people, and like understanding how awards in general work, like in any media industry, like even things like star, like your star on the Walk of Fame in Hollywood and stuff, like that's paid for. You buy that. It's not just given to whoever they think is cool. So like I think there's a little bit of misconception in like the media industry, like how it works.
Great. That's good advice. So, so let's get to the serious stuff. So how can people find out about the awards and, and find out and anything else you want to point people to?
Yeah, so the awards, you can find out about them at campodawards.ca. We'll be opening up for submissions here shortly. And you can follow us on all of our social media profiles at Campod Awards. We're on Instagram, Blue Sky. Those are the two main ones that we pay attention to. Come check us out at any events.
Well, of course, the important thing also is where do we send the bribe?
John at campodawards.ca. I'll accept them there.
That's great. All right. Well, John, thank you so much for making time for our program.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
That's it for this episode of Monetize This. Find the show, subscribe, and check out more at monetizethispodcast.com. Thanks for listening.